So, Mom, it is July 30th, 2021, and just going to ask you, what is your very first memory that you can remember?
Well, I have so many memories, and a lot of them are from a very early age, like maybe 3 years old or something like that. But I always remember as one of my very first memories, I was riding on a horse, a big horse, seemed big to me, in front of my dad, and we were,
A real horse?
I beg your pardon?
A real horse? A real horse? A real horse?
Yes.
Okay.
We lived, wait, I'll have to think if that neighborhood had a actual name or not.
It's okay. It doesn't.
We lived, I believe that we lived at that time on the Roy Kennedy farm. And my dad and my grandpa Rower were buying, I guess, that farm, anyway, a farm, together. But the Depression had really turned them into poor folk, and they never did really finish purchasing that farm. But anyway, we lived there for quite a while. I remember living there when I was very, very young. And I think one of the first memories I remember is riding on the horse in front of my dad, and we were going plop, plop, plop because it was muddy, and we were going down the road, either, I suppose, to visit someone or to return home. I just remember how it felt to be riding up high like that, and I remember the sound that the horse's hoofs made in the mud, sort of a plop or a sloosh. I just, for some reason, remember that.
And how old were you?
What?
How old were you about?
I think I was around 3. I'm not sure. It was before Neva Rose was born.
And you were riding on the horse with your dad?
Yeah,
sitting in front
of him. Farmers did do a lot of horse riding, you know.
Yeah. Okay. What else do you remember from early childhood?
Not very much. I remember some of the neighbors. We lived down the road from Norma Jean Cassidy, and her folks were Elver and Nellie, and her grandparents lived just down the road from us, and she was about my age, maybe a year older, and we were very good friends for quite a while when we were little girls. And later she married John Burns. And
who then later on married Sandra.
Yes.
Yeah.
After Gerald Lee died, and after Norma Jean died. And she was a really pretty girl with auburn, kind of curly, wavy hair. Very, very pretty. And the last time I remember seeing her, she was a sophomore, and I was a sophomore in high school. So that's a memory of the time we lived there. We lived in half the house. My Brower grandparents and Cletus, my youngest uncle, lived in the other half. So a lot of the times I went over there and ate a meal with my grandparents. And I don't know who gave me the nickname, but I had the nickname Minnie the Moocher, because that was a popular comic book strip, and they were just teasing me because I loved to go over there and mooch their food. And this is at the time when we lived there, Neva Rose was born. And I'm sure I've told you all about that before. And it was raining, and we had a big screened-in back porch. And I wouldn't have had to get wet, but I guess I was jealous or something. I really don't know why, but I went out and lay down in a big puddle of water as close as I could get to the screen wire on the back porch. And then after the baby was born, and I guess maybe I'd seen her, I don't know. And I said I must have been a very spoiled child. And I said, I want to go to my grandma and grandpa Kirk's. And so they weren't there right then, but in a few days, they came to see the new baby, and I still was saying that I wanted to go home with them. So I'll always think that my Grandpa Kirk was the greatest person on earth, almost. And when they were ready to take me home with them and had my clothes and things packed in the car, and then I put up another fuss. I think I should have had a spanking. I was their only grandchild at the time, but the Rowers had lots of grandchildren already. But anyway, I said, I want to take all of my toys. So nobody put up an argument, and I remember it just like yesterday. And my grandpa didn't say, oh, now that's too much, or, didn't get after me. He went in the house, got a big box. They started gathering my toys. My grandpa took this big box full of toys and put in the car trunk. And as far as I know, when we left, I had every toy I owned in that box. I don't remember how long I stayed. I don't remember anything about that. I do remember, though, when Neva Rose got her name, plain as day, that my Aunt Faye, Rower Bailey, and some of her boys were there to see the baby. And her son Orvis said, what was the baby's name? And Aunt Faye said, Neva Rose. And he said, oh, Eva Rose. And she said like 5 times, no, not Eva, Neva. I remember that so plain. And
do you think you wanted to take all your toys because you were afraid the baby would get them?
I have no idea why. I just can't even imagine myself now or later on at that sort of action. But that did happen, and I remember it, and I'm sure other people verified it if I would ask them that would have been there at that time.
And how old were you when Neva was born?
I liked 3 months of being 5.
Okay. So you'd been an only child for 5 years.
And I do remember, though, that my Grandma Rower and I were pretty close at that time, too. And when it would be winter and it would freeze and big icicles hanging down outside the house, my grandma and I would go outside and she would pull down an icicle and make sure it was clean, and we would eat it like a popsicle. Good. And I don't think the snow and the ice was contaminated then like it probably is now. So right now, that's all the memories I can think of that house. But that's something.
Now, is that the house where you were born when they lived in that house, or you moved
Was
there?
I born there, you mean?
Yeah.
No, I was born at the home of my Kirk grandparents.
But did your parents live in that house when you were born?
My parents.
Is that where your mom?
No, I don't think so. I
Okay.
don't know where they lived. Mother and I were living there because, it was hard times due to the Depression. And Daddy was working, I think it might even have been 20 miles, quite a few miles away someplace on somebody else's farm. I don't know much about it. And Mother and I were living with the Kirks, Mother was, and that's when I was born.
And you were born at home.
Yeah.
Most
babies were for
Yeah.
a long time after that.
What do you know about when you were born?
What do I know about when I was born? Well, not very much.
Well,
Even with my good memory, I don't remember that.
What have you heard? What have you heard?
But I do remember what my Aunt Bertha Smith told me, my Grandma Kirk's mother, or sister, Aunt Bertha. And Aunt Bertha said that she happened to be there having lunch with them that day. And that Mother was determined that she was going to make her yellow cake for them to have to eat. I don't know if it was past mealtime or not. And Mother was real famous even then. She was just 20 years old, but she was known for making these good yellow cakes. So she was going to make a yellow cake. And so she went out to the hen house to get her own eggs. And I guess she was pretty peppy because she jumped over the barbed wire fence. And I guess she sort of slipped as she jumped or something. Or she stepped over it very lively, I don't know. Anyway, she went over the barbed wire fence, which she shouldn't have done. And I was born then, before Poss got home from school. Between the time Poss went on the bus to school and the time she got home, probably about 4:30 in the afternoon, I was born. And I think I must have been born about 3:30 in the afternoon.
Poss was in high school, or how old was Poss?
Sure, Poss was in high school. Not very, just 13. I don't know if she was in high school. I remember when Poss was in high school. I'm not sure she would have been then.
What year was Poss born?
She's only 13 years older than me.
Okay, well, so she would have been like 8th grade, probably. 13.
What?
She would have been in 7th or 8th grade if she was 13.
She could have been a freshman because a lot of kids started school at 5, even though they didn't have kindergarten.
So she was just barely a teenager.
She was probably in 8th grade.
So she was
But
13.
I remember being at my grandparents' lots of times when she was in high school, and I would sit on the porch and wait for the bus for her to come home. But that was later.
Anything else you want to talk about today? About those early memories?
I mean, you would have to give me the clue and the trigger because I don't know what you want to talk about.
Well,
are you going to take this straight through my life chronologically?
I don't know. We'll just see where it goes.
Okay.
So
you think up the subjects.
But it's not just what I want to talk about, it's what you want to talk about, too.
I don't care what I talk about.
Okay.
I've got memories about everything.
Okay.
And I got my good memory, from my Grandma Kirk.
We'll let you get a drink and maybe ask another question in a minute, okay?
Okay.
All right.